Welcome to the latest edition of Lunchtime Learnings. I'm delighted to be joined today by Clare Yates from CY Training Works. I love the name, by the way, Training Works. I think it's absolutely brilliant play on words, but I also know it's incredibly true. And I know you've worked with over 300 law firms, trained 2,500 estate agents, been in the industry for over 30 years. So today, I like to unpick the lessons that you've learned along the way. I saw you speak last year in the Women in the Estate Agency conference. You were absolutely exceptional. I think we'll touch on that in a bit. The subject matter was it was a real eye-opener for me. And I was ashamed to say, as a man, I didn't know what was going on, but we'll leave that to discuss in more detail. But Clare, thanks so much for joining me. So, agency, how did you become an estate agent in the first place and then go from an estate agent to a trainer?
That's a really interesting question to start with, funnily enough. So first of all, thank you for inviting me, Stephen. It's such a privilege to be able to talk to you as well. I think we've got a mutual admiration club going on. So I started out actually in retail. I was a trainee manager with Marks and Spencer's when I left school. I followed my father, who was a very successful branch manager, and I thought my career lay in retail. But after working in M&S for 2 years, and it was really hard work and ridiculously long hours, I realized it really wasn't for me. And so I went to insurance. And I worked in Eagle Star when it was Eagle Star, not Zurich, and worked my way up from being just like a little file handler to something a little bit more ambitious. And I became the first life rep, female life rep. They hadn't had anybody on the road in a female capacity. That was 1984, 85. And they said, whatever you do, don't go and get married and move away, will you? And that's exactly what I did. So had another couple of little jobs with brokers and stuff, and then moved again with my ex-husband. And we ended up in Lancashire and had 2 boys within 16 months of each other. Not recommended, but there you go. And I needed a job pretty quickly because we were at 13% interest rates at the time. Most people were in quite a scary place financially. So I've discovered that estate agency paid better than working on a till in Tesco's. So I applied to be a part-time weekend receptionist in a company called Ely Long in Rossendale. So with this lovely southern accent, you can imagine I fitted in really beautifully. And so, yeah, that was where it started. And when we moved back south again, which we did, back to Oxfordshire, I managed to find another job as a part-time weekend receptionist, and off it went. I loved it. I made up Abbey National books in the morning because I'm that old. It was Abbey National, not Santander. And then in the afternoon, I showed people around property, and the hours went up to 35 hours a week. And they said, call me a part-time at 40 hours. And they joked and said, when was I ever going to work full-time? And I did new builds with Persimmon Homes and Lang Homes. Went to work for Chancellors for a few years. And yeah, that's how it all started.
Okay, so you must have, all your customer service training must have come from starting at M&S.
Yes.
Because I'm sure they gave great training there. So what lessons did you learn from M&S that you brought into agency?
I think the first was about actually making every customer inquiry special. You were never too busy to deal with a customer inquiry, and you were on the sales floor to serve. You weren't on the sales floor to do anything else. So you'd be given a job to do while you waited for customers to approach you, but there was always something to do, but the customer was more important than what you were doing. And I still believe, and I still talk about that, whatever you're doing is never more important than serving the customer. And when I see people with their heads down in estate agency branches, busy putting data onto the screen, and somebody is shuffling from foot to foot waiting to be acknowledged, it kind of makes my blood boil, because without customers, we're nothing. And I twitch when I hear a ringing phone. I start wanting to just go and tell people to answer the phone. So yeah, I think that's the fundamental one. And if somebody is raising a query, the first thing they've got to do is acknowledge the query, regardless of whether you think it's justified or not. So we can be quite defensive in agency about people who are complaining or challenging us, and we start to challenge back, whereas we should actually welcome their opinion, their thoughts, and try and find out why they feel the way they do.
Thank you. So I've had a really interesting last 2 or 3 months on the side of girlfriend is selling a property, so had agents round and has sold and now is looking to buy. And even yesterday we were out and we tried to walk into an estate agent, and the door was closed, which is fine, I get that. Then she dropped all her crisps everywhere as she was coming out to come and say hello. Then her phone rang, so she didn't come out and say hello. She went to pick up the phone. Then eventually she came out, opened the door, and said, "What do you want?" And I thought, great. And that's just the start of it. On Saturday, we walked into another agent, just literally on her phone. Just no acknowledgement whatsoever. And this is the best one, Claire. This doesn't make you laugh. I don't know what will. So we called an agent that's been very established, and they said, "Why are you calling?" So we said, "Well, we've just seen the property on Zoopla or Rightmove. Yeah, that one's sold. Can we register?" "No, just if you see a property that comes up on Zoopla or Rightmove, give us a call." And that was their reaction. I thought I'd seen absolutely everything being an estate agent and being a trainer, and I think I could write a book about what's happened in the last 3 months. And I am just, and you know, I know you've got the survey that comes out every year about estate agents and where are they, and where and how much do you trust them, and agents have got to start earning that trust. And I know there are loads of exceptional agents out there. I know that there are a lot that do a fantastic community work and support their community and do a massive difference make a massive difference for their sellers and their landlords. But there are not many of them. I think they're the ones that want to invest in training because they continuously want to learn and improve. And I hope for people that, I know the people that are watching this are those sort of people. But as a whole, what needs to be done to get everybody just improving on their customer service? Because, I'm lost for words, and it takes a lot for me to be lost for words, I can tell you.
So I've just literally come off a call with the lovely Jo Bourne, and she said, "Why is it that some agents can find money to sponsor a roundabout, but they won't spend £1,000 on training their staff to deliver a great service?" And I am flummoxed. I don't understand why you'd have a shop on the high street, because that's what it is. You've got things in the window that you want people to come in and ask about and to sell. Why would you have a shop on the high street and not be open? And why would you have a shop on the high street that makes it difficult for people to come in and inquire? And if you're going to have a shop on the high street, the people in that shop are there to serve and nothing else. Now, you can do your admin work in a locked away office. You can do it behind the scenes. That doesn't need to be done in public. But I find it staggering that some of these open plan offices mean that people are actually having difficult conversations in the front or in the middle of the sales floor while people are coming in, that we're telling people that the houses are overpriced in an arena where other people can hear those calls. Or they're saying, we haven't had any viewings for 2 weeks. That call is taking place where other people can hear it. I find it extraordinary. We have to find a way of understanding how to deliver, how to create that wonderful red carpet feeling for everybody. And the thing I find most astonishing is the girl with the crisps and the guy that didn't want to know. who does he think your girlfriend is? Does he not realize that she will tell other people about her experience, and other people and other people? So I don't understand what people are thinking of. Why spend all the money on marketing and not want the inquiries? It's ridiculous.
100%. I love what you just said there, red carpet feeling. So in Clare Yates's world, how does one create that red carpet feeling?
The first thing is, it sounds really difficult. This doesn't cost anything. We're actually born with it. It's to smile. There's quite a few people that just look as if, oh God, there's a customer here, and they find it almost hard to smile. Are you smiling? Are you smiling when you talk to people? People laugh about this because it's such an easy way. I ask people to imagine your nan is thinking of moving home, and you're going to take nan out. And there's a reason why you take nan out, isn't there, Stephen? Why would you take nan out house hunting?
I want nan to. I want everybody to treat me how they would anybody, like my nan, mum, anybody. Whilst you're saying that, I'm just looking at one of the best poems ever about smiling. So carry on. Sorry.
Is it the one about the glowworm? Because that's one of my favourites.
Smiling is infectious.
Oh no, I don't know that one.
Sorry,
share that one with me. But yeah, so smiling is really easy. To actually saying welcome to our agency. What's prompted you to come in to see us today? How can we help? All the usual stuff. But for me, it's the test of what would you want for your nan, and that's how you want everyone to feel. Do come in, sit down. You know, I use a question every day, which is who recommended us to you as standard, because I want to know what's prompted their visit. But if I say who recommended us to you, they have to say, oh, I wasn't recommended, I just went past. And I say, oh, it's all right. The reason I say that is all the people that come to us normally come from recommendations. And it kind of just says, welcome to our friendly, happy place. We're here to help people move. It's what we do. And there's that
subliminal message there as well. You know, they must be trustworthy. God, if they just get all those recommendations. So as well, you stole my line. I use that as well. I think that's common. Here you go. I've got the poem. Smiling is infectious. You catch it like the flu. When someone smiled at me today, I started smiling too. I passed around the corner and someone saw my grin. When he smiled, I realized I passed it on to him. I thought about that smile, then I realized its worth. A single smile just like mine can travel round the earth. So if you feel a smile will begin, don't leave it undetected. Let's start an epidemic quick and get the world infected.
Oh, that's lovely. Mine is somewhat shorter. Oh.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I lost you briefly for a minute, and my laptop decided to throw up something. There we go. I wish I was a glowworm, because a glowworm's never glum. Because how can you be miserable when the sun shines out your bum? So
there you go. Good. Okay. So coming back, so what would you want for your nan? Spot on.
I want somebody, and I also want somebody to speak in plain English. I want somebody to listen to what she's telling them, and I want them to actually care about her. It's really simple.
Okay. So listening, massive tool. How do people improve on their listening skills?
The first thing that I learned, actually, I learned the hard way, Stephen, because one of my best friends told me I was a terrible listener. And I said, I object to that. She said, let me explain what happened the other day. I came round to tell you about my holiday, and you told me about yours. I tried to talk about my children, and you told me about yours. And I tried to talk about how I was feeling, and you told me how you were feeling. So I had, every time she brought up a topic, I had interrupted her with my own experience or my own thoughts on each thing. And I hadn't realized I'd done it. I thought I was being friendly and having a conversation, but in fact, I didn't ever stop with the intent to understand her. And I think we do an awful lot of that. We want people to stop talking so we can talk. That we're going, yeah, we're always trying to wrap people up. And I think we've become more and more impatient as we get older. And listening is so important, and the pauses are so important. We just have to take time, because if we don't listen to our customers, we're never going to deliver a good service. They tell us what they want, and it's up to us whether we listen and deliver, as far as I'm concerned. So we have 2 of these and 1 of these. We have to use them in proportion to the way they were given. But sadly, we are a talking industry, and we do tend to talk more than we listen.
I remember I was sat at an event, an industry event, and there was somebody at Fine and Country, and we were just having a discussion. And he said to me, he decided that he wanted to go on a market appraisal and use a market appraisal as a training exercise for his colleagues. And he asked the seller, would you mind if I record the appraisal so I can go back and I can use it as a training exercise? And the seller said, yeah, of course you can. So he went back and he played it back, and he said, this is how you don't do an appraisal. He said, I think I spoke for 80% of the time and listened 20% of the time. He said it should have been the other way around. And it was a massive learning curve for him. So again, is there any tips that you've got for people to improve their listening skills?
100%. So I do give them quite often a little sort of list of 5 questions to ask themselves. Things like, do you find yourself interrupting people because you know what they're going to say? Do you find that you, if you don't understand the words that they're saying, do you kind of just pick up a few words and try and interpret them the way you do? Are you busy doing something else when you should be listening? And are you easily distracted? So any of those you can practice. And I do practice listening to things like my husband's day, even when I know I'm not really interested, but I make myself listen and ask questions. Ask lots of questions and wait for the answers, and then show you've listened by asking questions about what they've just said. And if you can't do that, then you haven't listened.
There you go. Thank you. You mentioned about communication before, and I think communication is even more important now in the market that we're in. And actually, you made a really interesting point what you were saying, discussing price reductions in front of a new potential seller that's just come in, thinking, what am I doing coming in, instructing this agent when they're having a massive conversation? Some agents are afraid to have those fierce conversations. It's easier not to have the conversation. Again, tips on communicating with your sellers and your landlords and your buyers, and in fact your whole customer base, because seeing as the majority of people, once they buy through you, go in witness protection and you never hear from your agent again.
Oh my goodness, I can remember a girl on a training course that I ran, and I was talking about seller feedback and seller contact. I keep calling it vendor contact, but I don't think anybody outside the industry understands what we mean by vendors. But seller feedback, and she said, I love it when I get voicemail, so that she doesn't have to have the conversation. She can say that she ticked a box to say she tried to call. Other people said, oh, I just do it by email now. It's much easier. My clients prefer email. And I said, have you asked them that? And there's this question. I said, no, the fact is you prefer email because you don't want dialogue. We have to have a conversation. We work so hard to get into that position of selling their home. So the least we can do is the courtesy of talking to them about how it's going. I'm sure you recommend the same, Stephen, but I think if we're going to have, by the way, a price reduction conversation, that should take place back in the property where possible. That's where it started, and that's where it should carry on. And we can talk about the feedback in a very constructive way, in their comfortable turf, not in the comfort of our office. So I think it's a nice way to do it. It's a business conversation. when it comes to just having conversations with people and landlords as well, these are so important for them. It's not about you. So you have to be thinking about, what do they want to hear from me, and give them an opportunity to talk. We tend to just, how are you? All right. And then go straight into defending our position, rather than saying, how are we doing for you? What questions have you got for me? And let's look at the future. What's going to happen next? But it's got to be their call. It's for them to talk to you, not the other way around, in my view.
Yeah, no, I agree. And for me, I would always diarise a face-to-face meeting a month in the diary on sales, if for any reason the property haven't sold. And as an agent, that worked really, really well for me. And actually, what also worked well for me was putting offers forward face-to-face. Or if people can't do it now, what we're doing, Zoom, whatever it is. I mean, it's so much easier to communicate face-to-face these days. And you can actually see people and see their reaction, and gauge what they think about the offer, the lack of people coming round. But having that conversation or by email, and I find email very unemotional, and it can come across totally the wrong way at times. You don't mean it.
Yes, it's read in the tone of voice or the mood of the recipient, not the writer.
Yeah.
And there's most people laugh when they hear this, because I find it's the strangest phrase. And forgive me, Stephen, if you ever write it in an email, but I just don't understand it. Where people start an email and they go, "I hope this email finds you well." And I keep saying, please tell the email that I'm extremely well. Reassure the email that I intend to stay well for the rest of the week. But it's a very strange. Now, if you're cross with the agent, it can sound almost sarcastic. I hope this email finds you well. It's just that, so if I'm in a bad mood, I can find something in an email that will irritate me. Whereas if I'm in a great mood, I'm going to read it and say, oh, that's a nice email. So unless you know exactly how it's going to be received, it's a dangerous game to put important information affecting their decision in an email, and I would never do it.
Okay. You also touched on complaints earlier.
Yeah.
Okay. And estate agents get complaints from time to time. Again, tips on handling those complaints.
So there's a few things here. The first thing is, I regard a complaint as a present. Most people think I'm completely mad. It is unsolicited feedback. You haven't had to go out and get it. You haven't asked them to fill a form in. It's their perception of how you are doing as a business to serve them. And they're giving you an opportunity to put things right. So if you get a complaint, somebody has taken the trouble to inform you that they're not happy. That's a gift. And the thing I say to people is, I want you to imagine how many restaurants, how many places you've walked out of saying, I'm not going to go back there, but you've never told them why. You'll tell lots of other people that it wasn't very good, but you don't tell them. So feedback is the lifeblood of a business. It's your way of listening to clients, but the opportunity to put things right is enormous. So I say thank you. Thank you for taking the trouble to pick up the phone, to contact me, tell me how you feel, and to give me the opportunity to look into this for you. I would always say I'm sorry that they feel the way they do, but I will never apologize without knowing whether we are actually at fault. But I do ask for time to investigate and to come back to them. And I give them timescales on when I'm going to do that. So to me, complaint handling can turn an adversary into an advocate, somebody who is determined to cause you problems, into somebody that's going to be a raving fan. Because I know businesses where I've not had a great service to start with, but they've turned it around because I've asked them to help me. So I think anybody that doesn't see a complaint as a good thing is missing a trick. The second thing is that a company should give their staff permission to make mistakes, because if you do that, then the staff will freely volunteer information about unhappy clients. So you have to create that culture where I don't mind if you make a mistake as long as you tell me about it. And I don't mind if we have a complaint as long as we have an opportunity to put it right. But if we have people who are terrified that they'll lose their jobs because they made a mistake, they will hide problems that then come back and become bigger and bigger issues. So it's about the culture and the atmosphere in a business that can change how a complaint is treated and make it invite people to give feedback rather than deflect it. I don't know whether you agree with me, Stephen. I'm rabbiting on like mad on that.
Do you know what I loved? Your language. Okay, talking about complaints. So most probably will be, oh my God, I've got another complaint. I don't know how to deal with it. But your language was brilliant. Calling it a present, calling it an opportunity to put it right, calling it a gift, trying to get those people to become advocates and raving fans. So I love all of that because the mindset and the language is absolutely incredible. And actually already, you know, if it was me and I was on your training course, you've turned me around. So I was like, oh, I've got another complaint. Oh, I've got to deal with that. I hate confrontation. But actually you framed it in such a positive way that I can now, if I was whoever I am, think, you know what, actually, you know, yeah, I wouldn't have got that gift. How can I turn it around? How can I make that person a raving fan? How can I have an opportunity to put it right and make it better? And it is a gift. And I think mindset is really important. And a lot of people would have that fixed mindset. Oh, here's another complaint. You've demonstrated, well, look at this growth mindset to have by all your positive language.
Mm.
So I think that's a fantastic answer. So thank you. There you go. I've come on a Training Works course. It's amazing. Highly recommend Clare. So thanks for that. I think you shared some brilliant tips, you know, again, the red carpet feeling, the smiling, all exceptional, the complaint handling. So thank you. So I think about 5 weeks away from the next Women in Estate Agency conference. Last year was the best conference I think I've ever been to. There were, I think, about 200 odd people there. And I learned an awful lot. I was on a panel. I'm ashamed to say I don't know a lot about the menopause. And then Claire, I heard you speak, and I was ashamed, being a man, by what you shared, and it was an incredibly powerful talk. And I thought it was incredibly brave of you to stand on stage in front of 200 people and share your story. So thank you for that. And I just want to touch on it a little bit. So share what you want, share what you don't want. You know, that's absolutely fine. And I understand it's really hard hitting and really powerful. But there was a message there at the end. And I think there was a message for me, which was, as a man, don't stand around when you're seeing certain things happening to women in your company. So please, if you're comfortable sharing, please do.
So yes, you're referring, for those who couldn't get to the conference, because obviously we didn't record it on purpose. I was raped by my manager behind closed doors after the office had closed, and I didn't report it. I didn't report it for so many different reasons, but one, I was terrified that it would all come back on me. I didn't think people would believe me. I had 3 very young boys. My boys are 4 years apart, had to go home, relieve the childminder, do the stuff that parents do. The thought of going down to the police station and going through all of that was just unthinkable. So I buried it. I didn't talk about it with anybody for nearly 25 years, I guess. It was just, and it was only because I had some mental health issues that I went to see a counsellor, and she uncovered this. And I had to go through the trauma all over again. And then looking at it as an older woman with 2 granddaughters, I felt that I could do something to change the perception maybe of people. But the other thing was I made some phone calls to some dear friends as I was processing this, women of my age, and each one of them told me that they'd been assaulted. Senior women that you've met every every conference, Stephen will meet some of these women, and I would never reveal their identity, but one after another said something had happened to them, from being stuck in a car with two guys after a boozy night, being approached and assaulted in a lift, all sorts of things. And I was really shocked. And one lawyer actually said to me, I don't think you can find many women who in their career haven't had some experience or another of unwanted sexual attention. Sometimes it's just, he's always like that when he's had a drink. Sometimes it's, just leave him go. It's his way. Others think it's quite funny. Others just ignore it. But I need men to stand up and say, that's not acceptable. I need men to stand up and say, we don't behave like that anymore. I know it's historic. I know that things happened in the past. That's what happened to me. I can't change what's happened to me, but I can change what happens to women in the future. And I'd like to think I can influence the way that men behave in the future. There's nothing great about being groped under the table. There's nothing wonderful about somebody suggesting what they'd like to do to me later in their bedroom. It doesn't make me feel good. And I'm sure that most women would say the same. So, but we do quite like being told occasionally that we look really nice. There's nothing wrong with that. I quite like paying a compliment to a gentleman and saying, you look absolutely amazing in that suit. But we don't really need the extra gestures to reinforce that. And I'd like to think that we can change things. So yes, I want guys to say, mate, I think you've had enough and it's time for you to go, and don't behave like that in the future. Shout it out. Don't let it go.
Okay. Thank you for sharing. I think I'm pretty naive with what goes on, but it is a really, really important subject, and thank you for sharing it. Now, let's talk about this year's conference. What you got lined up that you can say?
Just an extraordinary event. We've thought really hard about it. The trouble is, when you created an event like we had last year, how do you beat it? How do you equal it? And we wanted to make it bigger because we sold out so early with the last one. We have still got tickets available for people who want to buy, and we've extended the early bird discount to Valentine's Day. So with any luck, this might go out before then. If not, you'll still be able to buy tickets, hopefully. But don't hang on, because there's some discounts to be had. But yeah, how do we equal that? So we've got a brilliant keynote speaker in terms of Kate Faulkner. We've got a secret keynote speaker at the end who we're so excited about. We're going to address some of the topics that we've done before, but we're going to do it with the theme of We're Unstoppable. We want this conference to inspire, to motivate, to drive everybody's behavior, but focusing on the fact that we all face barriers, and there are things happening in our daily lives that prevent us from achieving what we want. What I'm so pleased about, Stephen, is the fact that you enjoyed it so much. And we know that other guys that attended found it just as inspirational from a male perspective. So I would encourage everybody to see our event as having something for them. It's very different to conferences, as you'll agree, that you go to as standard. We're not going to do this how to list more at higher fees and do less. We're not going to have any of that. We're not going to have any more of the, I started out and did this, and, look what, none of that sort of very, very traditional conference stuff that we do, but much more about inspirational, motivational, powerful messages and some great panel discussions as well. So yeah, I'm not on the stage this time. I'm going to be a very happy supporter spectator. But between us on the committee, and we've now got men on the committee as well, we're hoping that we create a truly memorable event with the same kind of wonderful reaction as we got last year.
Yeah, and last year was exceptional. It really was. So, final question for you then. You talked about inspiration, you talk about motivation. So who inspires Clare Yates?
So there's a woman who's inspired me since I was tiny, and that's my mum. She's no longer with us, but my mum gave up the opportunity to be a cartoonist with the Daily Mirror to marry my dad and go around supporting him. She's also a brilliant actress, and she was a very, very clever and brilliant tennis player, and she didn't do what she wanted to do so she could bring up 5 kids. But my mum made me laugh every day. She believed if she couldn't make somebody laugh in the first 5 minutes of meeting them, she probably had nothing in common with them. But clever, funny, charming, and I didn't know anybody that had a bad word for my mum. So for me, I aspire to be like her, so that nobody would have a bad word to say about me, and I can make somebody laugh every day. Because I think if you can't laugh, then what's the point? The second person that inspires me, of course, there's so many. I love watching Julie Walters, that's managed despite, you know, the challenges she's had as a mum. She's another one that just makes me laugh. And then within the industry, I'm surrounded by inspirational women. I would struggle to pick one that makes my jaw drop, and I just think you're amazing. But just look at our committee, and you just think every single one of them is incredible. So yeah, I'm very grateful. I've had some really wonderful people root for me. My branch manager in Chancellors, David Blythman, said, "I don't know how you do it, but you've got it, girl, and you go and fly." I had a wonderful relationship. That sounds rude. No, not relationship, friendship. I've had a wonderful friendship with Peter Knight, who gave me the opportunity to go onto a bigger stage quite early on in the early 2000s, take me out of still thinking I was a negotiator and account manager. So, you know, there are people who have come into my life for a reason and have turned my life around. So I'm really grateful that I've met some of the right people at the right time.
Thank you, Claire. How do people get hold of you? How do they find you if they want to use your great training?
Okay, well, obviously, CY Training Works is hopefully a fairly memorable name. So I've got a website, cytraining.works. It's a very simple website. And if they go on there, there's my contact information, telephone number, and so on. So.
Brilliant. Well, look, thank you so much for your time. Really grateful. Look forward to seeing you at the conference in 5 weeks' time. For everybody that's watching, thank you very much. Please like it, share it, subscribe to the channel, and look forward to seeing you and sharing the next podcast on Lunchtime Learning with you. Bye.